Over the course of playing dozens, and eventually hundreds, of games for my main series, I realized there was something missing. I wanted to expand on each game I was playing and do fun historical facts, rushed explanation of plots, and finally, more in-depth reviews for each game. All games will be scored out of 100 on 5 different metrics: gameplay, story, visuals, level and world design, and vibe. The scores will be averaged together at the end to see what my personal rating of the game is. However, there is also a secret, not so secret, sixth category that is the X Factor, which can boost the overall score by up to 10 points for whatever the X Factor is. Now it is time to review the first game in the Games of the Year series that I actually played all the way through, the original 1986 Legend of Zelda. So let's dive right in. The gameplay for Legend of Zelda is the epitome of what I would call tough but fair. There is no hand-holding in this game. You are encouraged to just go. Playing it for the first time, I found the beginning quite frustrating as I was used to more responsive modern controls and kept thinking my character should have moved faster or attacked sooner. That being said, there was a logical progression to the enemy challenges. Each one, for the most part, had a learnable and eventually predictable behavior that enabled the player to feel like they are getting better and better at the game, which you are. The possible exception to this would be the Dark Nuts, which I felt were surprisingly unpredictable, and I ended up using a trick involving hiding behind a block and waiting for them to pass by so I could attack them. In general, it felt incredible to be several dungeons in and no longer fearing the overworld like I did in the first hour of play. I did find that the game was incredibly unintuitive, which is unfortunately a product of playing it now in 2025. Back when it was released, the game was designed to be somewhat of a group activity. Friends would go home, play for an hour or two, then reconvene the next day during lunch to discuss the various secrets they had found to help each other out, and thus would progress through the game. Now, since it is nearly impossible to play the game as it was originally intended, it is almost mandatory to use a guide, which lays out the dozens of secrets and must-knows of the game, to progress as designed. For those reasons, I would have given this game a 75 to 80 on gameplay if it was 40 years ago, but playing the game today, I would give the gameplay a 60. The premise of the story is incredibly straightforward. Princess Zelda has been kidnapped by the evil Ganon, who has stolen the Triforce of Power. Before being captured, Zelda shatters the Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces and scatters them across the land of Hyrule to keep it out of Ganon's hands. It's then up to you, as Link, a silent protagonist with no backstory given in-game, to collect these 8 pieces, defeat Ganon, and rescue Zelda. That's the entire narrative framework of the original game. Now, here's where things get tricky. If you never read the game's manual, the story is almost entirely non-existent. The game itself gives you almost no context or guidance. You wake up, grab a sword from an old man, and off you go. Because of that, I give the story a 45 out of 100 for players who just jump right in. However, if you did read the manual, you'd at least have some kind of background on who Ganon is, what the Triforce is, why Zelda shattered it, and why Link is chosen to save the day. That extra context bumps my score slightly higher to a 50 out of 100. Even with the manual though, the story is extremely simplistic. There's no moral complexity, no deep themes, and no character development. It's basically the classic hero's journey boiled down to its most basic form. Save the princess, defeat evil. It lacks the nuance or emotional weight we see in later Zelda titles like Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time, or Twilight Princess. That being said, we can't ignore its legacy. This simple framework was enough to kickstart one of the most beloved franchises of all time. With this game's bare-bones foundation, we wouldn't have the intricate storytelling of future Zelda entries. So overall, I'm giving The Legend of Zelda story a 45 if you didn't read the manual, and a 58 if you did. It's simplistic, it's basic, but it started a legend. For the purpose of overall score, I will go with the 58, because despite what it may sound like, I truly did love this game. For 1986, the graphics were exceptional. The game world is colorful and varied, and the sprites are easily recognizable despite hardware limitations. One of my favorite details is Link's clothing changing color as he upgrades his armor, first with the blue ring, and then with the red ring. It's a simple touch, but it really sells the idea of progression. The title screen deserves its own mention. The artwork there, with its iconic logo and dramatic scene, was an instant hook, and still looks great even by today's standards. However, there are some downsides. The game hides a lot of secrets. Hidden caves, bombable walls, burnable bushes, and unfortunately, there's usually no visual hint at all. Without a guide or lots of random guessing, you're almost guaranteed to miss many of these secret areas. Even something subtle, like a slightly cracked wall or a bush that looks out of place, would have gone a long way. Overall, for its time, The Legend of Zelda's visuals were top tier, with great use of color, memorable character sprites, and an iconic title screen, even if some elements left players in the dark. Literally. With that, I will be giving it a score of 85 on visuals. When it comes to level and world design, the original Legend of Zelda was yet again a trailblazer for its time. Right from the start, you're dropped into an open world and given the freedom to explore in any direction. No hand-holding, no linear path. You could reach nearly every corner of the map almost immediately, and for 1986, that was incredible. The dungeons, while admittedly somewhat repetitive in layout and aesthetic, were still fun mazes to fumble around in. Each one had that classic feeling of mystery and challenge. The overworld itself felt massive back then, almost too massive. Without a guide or tips from friends, it could feel intimidating and even overwhelming to explore. As mentioned earlier, many of the game's secrets are hidden with absolutely no visual hints. Bombing random walls and burning random bushes to find secret areas could be frustrating, and that knocks a few points off the overall design score. Still, for its time, The Legend of Zelda delivered a vast and daringly open experience that would influence decades of game design. For this, I give it an 82 on design. When it comes to pure vibe, the original Legend of Zelda absolutely nails it. There's just something about stepping into that 8-bit world for the first time. No hand-holding, no tutorial, just you, your sword, and a massive world of secrets waiting to be discovered. It's the kind of experience that feels timeless. Exploring that world, stumbling into dungeons, uncovering hidden caves, it all carries this sense of wonder and discovery that's rare even today. And let's not forget the challenge. Every enemy encounter and every puzzle forces you to stay sharp, which makes every victory feel earned. It also carries a bit of magic, knowing that this was the starting point for one of the greatest game franchises ever made. Even now, all these years later, you can still feel this game's DNA in all of the entries that would follow. The only thing I regret in playing this game is that I didn't get to experience it back in 1986, when friends would swap secrets and tips on how to progress further. That communal experience was a big part of the original vibe, and missing that keeps it just shy of perfection for me. But still, The Legend of Zelda isn't just fun, it's pure joy. It feels good to play, even decades later, and that says everything about how special the game really is. That being said, I give the vibe a 92, losing only a few points for the initial frustration, as I was simply trying to get good and died a whole lot in the first hour. That brings the 5-metric score to a 75.4. As for the X Factor, I debated on whether I would explain my X Factor scoring or not, but I think I will decide that on a case-by-case basis for each game as I review them. For this one, I will say I am giving it a full 10 on the X Factor, bringing my score of the game to an 85.4. The reason being that there is just something special about the game that is hard to quantify. It's like reading the first book in a grand series. Maybe the author hadn't fully found their legs yet, or perhaps in this case, they just were limited to what they could do, what they were able to create. But there is just this special feeling stepping into the world that deserves its full credit. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I would love for you to leave a comment with your thoughts or to bash my score. Either is fine with me. Please like and subscribe. I have over 200 of these more to go.